All right, let's dive in. We've got some pretty wild stuff to unpack today, like really wild.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one.
Because we're talking about these ancient stories, these moments where the lines between history and myth get super blurry.
Hmm.
Like phantom ships materializing out of thin air,
Right.
prophecies that, like, eerily seem to come true in the strangest ways, enigmatic visitors with knowledge that seems way ahead of their time. We've got whispers of civilizations lost to the mists of time, and journeys across vast oceans that seem impossible for their era. And what we really want to do in this deep dive is kind of like dissect these tales, figure out what they can tell us about how ancient cultures dealt with encountering the completely unexpected.
Yeah, how did they grapple with things that fundamentally challenge their understanding of the world?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, how did those encounters change them? And why have these specific stories, out of all the countless stories that must have been told, why have these ones stuck around and resonated for so long?
I think it really speaks to the enduring power of the unknown. These are moments where people are confronted with something that just completely shatters their understanding of reality. And the stories that arise from those encounters, they really reflect that tension, that struggle to make sense of something that just doesn't fit into their existing framework.
Right. And the whole thing kicks off with this incredible image, right? I mean, you gotta imagine these spectral galleons, silver-hued, just suddenly appearing out of nowhere off some uncharted coast. It's twilight, the sun's setting,
Yeah.
and these ships, they're not just regular ships. They're described as almost like shimmering, ethereal, like something out of a dream. Can you imagine witnessing that? I mean, if you were one of the people standing on that shore, how could you not question everything you thought you knew about the world?
Oh, absolutely. That visual, that shock of the first encounter, it's so crucial. It immediately sets the stage for something extraordinary. And the language used to describe them, right? Spectral, silver-hued. These aren't just ordinary ships. They're something outside the realm of normal experience, something that demands explanation. And that's where the prophecy comes in.
Right, right. Because within this vast empire, there's this remote civilization that has this ancient prophecy, right? The
Mhm.
prophecy of the Pale Wanderer. And this figure's return, it's supposed to usher in an era of like massive renewal, but also terrible destruction. It's both a blessing and a curse. And when those spectral ships appear, the local oracle, basically without hesitation, declares, this is it. This is the sign we've been waiting for. You can almost feel the collective gasp, the mix of hope and fear that must have swept through that civilization.
Yeah, and it really highlights how existing belief systems, those deep-seated narratives, they provide a way to grapple with the inexplicable. They offer a framework for understanding, even if that framework is, rooted in something as ambiguous as prophecy.
And then, to make things even weirder, these visitors actually come ashore. And their appearance, it only reinforces this otherworldly impression, gleaming armor, mounts that are unlike anything anyone's ever seen before. And then there's their leader, this enigmatic figure called the Harbinger. He's described as having this piercing gaze, an ashen silver beard, and this aura of like divine wisdom, but also this underlying sense of impending change. It's like he embodies both the promise and the threat of the prophecy.
Exactly. The descriptions go beyond mere physical appearance. They're loaded with symbolism, the
Yeah.
gleaming armor, the strange mounts. They all contribute to the sense of otherness, of something beyond the ordinary. And then there's that emphasis on his divine wisdom, right? It suggests access to knowledge and power that the Empire has never encountered before.
And of course, word of this, it spreads like wildfire. It reaches the capital of the empire, and you can just picture the sovereign sitting in his palace trying to process all of this. He's got this ancient prophecy on the one hand, and then these very real, very strange visitors with their advanced technology on the other, stuff that his empire has never even dreamed of. And he's faced with this monumental decision, right? How does he respond to this?
Right. It's that critical moment where leadership intersects with the unknown. Does he embrace it? Does he reject it?
And he ultimately decides to welcome the Harbinger. He holds this grand ceremony, essentially legitimizing the Harbinger as this messenger of destiny, the fulfillment of the prophecy. It's a calculated risk for sure. He's trying to control the narrative, harness the potential for renewal that the prophecy speaks of, while maybe, hopefully, mitigating the risk of destruction. But as we'll see, things don't exactly go according to plan.
Yeah, that's where the story takes a really interesting turn, because that whole idea of divine intervention, it starts to unravel. The Harbinger's gifts, this advanced technology, the new battle tactics, they're not purely beneficial, are they?
Not at all. It turns out there are actually tools in this, like insidious power grab. The
Hmm.
Harbinger uses them to subtly but very effectively dismantle the empire's traditions. Even their most sacred relics, they're twisted, they're reinterpreted to justify this new order.
Mm.
And the empire descends into the spiral of betrayal, violence, chaos. It's a sobering reminder that even seemingly well-intentioned encounters with the unfamiliar can have unintended and really devastating consequences.
It speaks to the fragility of even well-established systems. The introduction of new elements, even seemingly positive ones, can disrupt the balance of power. And the manipulation of cultural symbols, those things that hold a society together, that's a potent weapon for reshaping a civilization.
Yeah, it makes you think about the long-term impact of these kinds of upheavals, how deeply they would scar a society's collective memory. But then the story throws another curveball at us. Because, as the empire is grappling with all of this, people start finding these strange artifacts, symbols etched into stone, metal, hidden away in caves, ancient ruins. And these artifacts, they seem to predate the Harbinger's arrival by a significant amount of time. And it raises the possibility that maybe the Harbinger wasn't this unique, never-before-seen phenomenon after all. Maybe he was part of this much longer cyclical pattern of contact between different cultures and ancient powers.
That really challenges our assumptions about the isolation of ancient civilizations, doesn't it? It forces us to ask, are we seeing isolated incidents here, or are we looking at fragments of a much larger, interconnected story?
And if that's the case, how much are we missing?
Right. It makes you wonder how much of history has been lost, how many connections have been forgotten. These artifacts, they suggest that our understanding of the past might be far more incomplete than we realize.
It completely reframes the narrative, doesn't it? It's not just about a single arrival, a single disruption. It hints at this deeper, more complex interplay between cultures over vast stretches of time. And then we shift focus to this other location, right? This land shrouded in mist and ancient forests, home to the eternal sepulchre, this massive tomb built by a civilization that has vanished, and it's filled with relics that supposedly link them to this sprawling ancient world. And the hieroglyphs inside, they tell a fascinating story. They hint at contact with travelers from this, mythical land of eternal light and shadow.
It's like we're moving from a story of conquest and upheaval to something more subtle, something more mystical. It suggests a different kind of interaction.
And there's even this theory that the sepulchre itself was designed to channel energies from this forgotten age. It's like a bridge between worlds, between different eras. It really expands the possibilities for how these ancient cultures might have interacted, doesn't it? It goes beyond just trade or warfare. It hints at the exchange of ideas, beliefs, maybe even spiritual practices. And then, just when you think you've got a handle on the different ways these worlds might have collided, we get this story about these master navigators from this remote island. And their story, it really challenges what we think we know about ancient seafaring. Because the legends speak of these incredibly skilled sailors with ships that were far more advanced than anything we typically associate with their time. And these navigators, they supposedly sailed far beyond the known world, reaching this distant shore filled with unique plants and animals, a place unlike anything they'd ever seen.
It really forces us to reconsider the limitations we often impose on ancient people, doesn't it? Their capabilities, their knowledge, we tend to underestimate them.
And then, to back up those legends, we have the discovery of these exotic crops and tools on the island, stuff that clearly originated in that distant land. And the tools, they're described as having this remarkable artistry, this level of craftsmanship that speaks to a high level of cultural sophistication.
Yeah, it's just something more than just basic survival, right? It speaks to a culture that values beauty, skill, precision. It adds another layer to the story.
And it paints this picture of a much more interconnected ancient world than we typically imagine. A world where cultures weren't so isolated, where knowledge and goods could flow across vast distances, carried by the currents and the winds. And then to bring it all back down to a human level, we have this really poignant story, the tale of the lone navigator. He's abandoned by his own people, left behind in this bustling eastern port city. But he's taken in by this powerful local lord who recognizes his unique talents, his knowledge of the sea. And this lord, he becomes his patron, his mentor, and he helps the navigator combine his own knowledge with the local wisdom, the local shipbuilding techniques. And the navigator, he blossoms. He becomes this legendary master of the seas, developing groundbreaking innovations in shipbuilding and navigation that transform seafaring in that region. But it comes at a cost, doesn't it?
Yeah, he achieves all of this, but he's forever an outsider. He's caught between two worlds, never fully belonging to either. It's a reminder of the personal sacrifices that often accompany these kinds of cultural exchanges. The loneliness, the feeling of displacement, even when you achieve great things.
It's a really powerful way to end this collection of stories. It brings it all back to the human level, to the individual lives that are shaped by these encounters, these clashes of cultures. What started with this spectral fleet, this grand prophecy, it ends with this single life, profoundly altered by contact with another world. And it really drives home the point that history is so much more intricate, so much more mysterious than we often give it credit for.
Yeah, it's not just about dates and battles and the rise and fall of empires. It's about these human stories, these moments of connection and conflict that ripple through time.
And these stories, they're not just fanciful myths. They're echoes of real encounters, real interactions that had deep and lasting consequences. And as we've journeyed through these tales, a few really big themes have emerged, haven't they? The sheer power of that initial moment of contact, how it can completely upend a civilization's understanding of itself and its place in the world.
Yeah, and the vulnerability of even the most powerful societies when faced with the truly unknown. And then there's the enduring power of those myths, how they shape our interpretations of events, how they provide meaning and context.
And then, of course, there's that double-edged sword of progress and loss that so often accompanies the meeting of different worlds, the potential for both great advancement and devastating destruction.
And what's really striking is that recurring figure, that archetype of the wanderer, the traveler who appears unexpectedly and acts as this catalyst for change. We see it with the pale wanderer of the prophecy, the harbinger arriving on those spectral ships, and even the master navigator finding a new home in a foreign land.
It makes you wonder, what is it about the arrival of the outsider that so often triggers these massive transformations?
Is it the introduction of new ideas, new ways of thinking, or is it simply the disruption of the existing order that creates the opportunity for change? It's a question that's worth pondering.
And then there are those unanswered questions about the artifacts, the eternal sepulcher, those hints at cycles of contact and influence that have been largely forgotten. How much of our past remains hidden from us? What might those lost connections reveal about the true extent of interaction between ancient cultures? It's tantalizing, isn't it, to think that there might be so much more out there waiting to be discovered.
And those master navigators, those incredible voyages they supposedly undertook, how much would our understanding of ancient global connections change if we took those stories seriously, if we gave them the weight they deserve? It really challenges us to rethink our assumptions about the past.
And it leaves us with this really thought-provoking idea, doesn't it? The idea that these seemingly mythical encounters might actually hold echoes of profound historical events. And maybe the myths we dismiss today, the stories that seem too fantastical to be true, maybe they contain kernels of truth that we're just not ready to see yet. Maybe they're waiting for us to re-examine them with fresh eyes, with a willingness to consider possibilities that lie outside our current understanding of history.
It's a reminder that the line between myth and reality is often a lot blurrier than we think, and that the stories we inherit, they carry within them the echoes of encounters that have shaped the world we live in ways we might never fully comprehend.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the biggest takeaway is this. History is full of surprises, it's full of mysteries, and the more we dig, the more we realize how much we don't know. And maybe, just maybe, the stories that seem the most incredible are the ones that hold the greatest potential to reshape our understanding of the past, and maybe even our understanding of ourselves.
And who knows what incredible discoveries are still waiting to be made, what forgotten connections are waiting to be unearthed. It's an exciting time to be exploring the mysteries of the past.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder these mysteries. Until next time.
Until next time.